Welcome to the Scotty P podcast. Man, today I'm honored to have a friend I just met, Nima Hamvatan.
Correct.
Hamvatan?
Yes.
Go ahead and say it for
Hamvatan. Nima Hamvatan.
Nice. Okay. And man, we met in the sauna.
We did.
I had a gash under my eye. One of my buddies elbowed me in the eye, and I've got the ears. So then you asked me about martial arts,
Right.
and if I was a fighter. And here we are. It led to a podcast.
Man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. So you are, and this is just my from what I understand, and I'll have you tell the audience a little more about yourself, but you are a business owner, a martial arts coach, a boxing coach.
Correct.
You are a public speaker, a breathwork coach, an influencer. Man, you do a lot of different things. You kind of remind me of myself. You have all these hands and a lot of different things. I really like your public speaking, but if you want to kind of give the audience a little background of who Nima is.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Iran, and I moved here with my family in 2011. So it's been over a decade since I live in Houston.
Dang.
And long story short, what led me to martial arts in the first place is I used to get bullied. I used to experience, racism and all these kind of victim-like states during childhood and growing up into my teenage years. And around when I was 18 or 17, I found martial arts. I came across my coach, Benito Martinez. And this was like a really interesting time for me because it was like a year after I was introduced to psychedelics and I was introduced to meditation and breath work. And I was at a point where I realized that, I was meditating. I would go home, I would meditate. And I found out that I was actually meditating to disassociate from the pain that I was feeling. Mm. And so I would go back to school and the bullying was there and the meditation wasn't doing much. So when I got into martial arts, it was like this big realization that, hey, at one point, it doesn't matter how really spiritual or how aware I am, that if I don't stand up for myself, this isn't going to end. So
is this while you're in America?
This is while I'm in Houston, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
I can imagine they're pretty mean here. I can imagine the bullying's pretty brutal here.
Right. And we all experience it to an extent. And as I was telling you earlier, like nobody comes into martial arts with a perfect world. Right.
We were about to, we kind of linked up when we were talking and I was like, wait, we got to bust out the camera. So we were getting into it, but yeah, I really do like that thought.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, man. And everybody who comes into martial arts, we've either gotten hurt during our childhood, we're either going through something right now, or whatever it is, there's some conflict, there's some challenge, and there is this yearning to go heal it through martial arts. So in 2022, after a few years of training with my instructor, Benito Martinez, we decided to create a program called Roots of Boxing, where we taught traditional boxing, and then we would teach meditation and breath work at the end of each class. Mm. So it was like this new, this new approach towards martial arts, that we brought this awareness side to it. Mm. That we're not just learning to fight, but we're also learning to expand our awareness of why we do it. And there was this sense of balance, because some people, for example, would come in and they would experience bullying. And so we were like, teaching them to be more aggressive. Like, you just got to punch. You got to punch the guy in front of you. And then another person would come in, they're super aggressive. They like to fight. And we would teach them meditation, and we would teach them to relax and learn to have some self-control and learn to manage their emotions better. So fast forward to now, I I do public speaking on specifically trauma, teaching people how to ways that they can actually get in touch with their trauma and get to heal that, whether it's through boxing or whether it's through talking. And so I've kind of branched out into a few different areas, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Dude, there's so much I want to talk about in the little piece that you gave me. I'll start from the beginning. So you're talking about how you used meditation to cope with reality. It's so funny because that's usually like the opposite of what people, right? Usually people use meditation and then they realize the things that they do that help them cope with reality, but you're straight up using meditation to cope with reality.
Right.
And that's funny that like, you see that a lot where like people get into spirituality and then they use spirituality to cope with reality, right? Where it's like, you see like the spiritual bypassing of like, oh, I guess everything's meant to be, or everything happens the way it's supposed to happen, you know, or it's like, you're right. But also we have to take control, like people will just kind of like sideswipe their own responsibility by putting it out there on the universe kind of thing. And you said that you kind of witnessed yourself doing that and had to make a transition. And then you bring up how everyone is using martial arts to solve something in their life. Dude, I used to say that, but in a way more brash way. I would say that the only people doing martial arts are crazy people. But the way you say it sounds way better. But no, what I mean in that sense is that what you mean, well, we're coming here because we have an issue. We have a problem that we're trying to solve and we're not getting it through other means, right? But 100%, dude, anyone that I talk to that's in martial arts for a long period of time, we all have the same story where it's like, abuse when we were small, or bullying, or toxic relationships. I've heard it all, dude, And
Right.
So, yeah, I definitely agree with you there that, martial arts, for the most part, isn't something that's like, I do jujitsu on the side for fun. It's like most people take it very serious, and it's because it gives us this healing aspect that you speak of.
The perspective I want to bring today is that, one, this as a teacher, that, when people come in from martial arts for a long time, regardless of how, as long as they have an instructor who is careful and who cares for them, and who values their safety and, all the kind of ethical values that martial arts also needs to have for it to be a beneficial environment, that people genuinely improve their lives. The quality of their life improves. And there's another side to it. So the same way that we said that meditation can be a way to bypass, martial arts can be a way to bypass.
Guilty, dude, I'm guilty.
Right. And so, and we see this, I wanted to mention an example, Sean Strickland, world champion, right? And this guy, he went on a podcast with a guy named Theo Vaughn, and he opened up about his abuse, and it became a big deal, it was all over the internet. And what I pictured from my view, it was like this guy got more healing in that 15 minutes of the podcast than he has in his martial arts career.
Dude, yeah. Yeah.
So it's important. Sure, it's good to know, okay, I'm here and, I experienced this abuse or whatever, and I'm trying to get that anger off, trying to get that energy off me. But if we can't do it with consciousness, we can't do it with an aware approach, we're just recycling the emotions. So if my dad beat me up as a child, and I'm making this up, and every time I go into a sparring and I'm subconsciously visualizing the person in front of me as my dad, and I'm angry and I'm beating them up, but I'm not aware of this, then what happens is in that moment, I feel a sense of relief for a few moments. And then tomorrow, that rage is still inside of me, right? So the approach for me is do all that. Martial arts is great. And start to ask some questions about yourself. Find out why you do this. And maybe you'll be able to feel more of the the joy, and maybe you'll be able to understand the art of it more than just this aggressive space where you just go and get bloody and beat each other up.
Yeah. Well, dude, what you're really reminding me of here is when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a martial arts instructor. My audience has heard this like 20 times already, so I'm not trying to get too into it. But one of the main things that they would teach us about the specific program that we were in is called the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, MCMAP. And the Marine Corps itself had went through multiple iterations of like martial arts programs. And it kept canceling them. And then the one that I was in was the longest lasting one and was pretty much like confident that it wasn't going to go away. And it's because what we would do is not only were we teaching Marines how to fight, we would also do what they call tie-ins after the lesson. And we would teach them about how to be better people, both like personally and as a Marine. And we would do it by tying in like a story or like almost like sometimes they're like poems almost, sometimes they're like little anecdotal stories that, you get what I mean? Like
based on their story, like they would share their life.
Well, these are like, well, the instructor could, the instructor could come up with his own stories, but essentially they would give us resources that had a bunch of these like, like the butterfly or you're seeing a butterfly come from the cocoon and the person's like really excited and goes to help them and snips a little bit of it to make it easier for them to get out because they're so excited for this butterfly. And then the butterfly can't fly because it didn't go through the struggle of strengthening its wings. And so it ends up crippling the caterpillar. So it ends up as like this demorphed butterfly. And the lesson is that struggle helps you and that we see your struggle and I'm doing it on purpose. I want to help you, but I have to see you go through this kind of thing. And so you have a bunch of those stories and you tie them into the workouts. So first, like as just a learning idea in general, people learn better after they're a little exhausted. After you get someone's heart rate up and they're breathing heavy, their awareness is higher. They're more dialed in. And I'm sure you've noticed this, when people first come into a class, they might be a little more spaced out, a little all over the place. But after that first 2 or 3 drill sessions, they come back in. Now they're like, they're dialed into what you're saying. So we want to do that. You get them worked out, you teach them a technique, and then you bring it back to a time. And that was like the main thing that kept the Marine Corps martial arts program around is like, hey, we're not just training these guys to go out and beat people up in their off time. We're teaching them that we're teaching leadership through martial arts. That's like one of the things they say. It's like, this is not a martial arts course. This is a leadership course taught through martial arts. And that's what you're saying. It's like, this is, healing through martial arts.
Yeah. The leadership aspect. One thing I was going to say is that, like I mentioned earlier, that people genuinely just become better men after doing martial arts. From being in a boxing gym and being around other students who are training. One of the things I've noticed in myself and on other people is that we actually become a lot more balanced because we get this courage and we learn to defend ourselves, which is a feeling I think at our core every man wants, right? Every man wants to feel like they can protect themselves and their loved ones. Mm-hmm. But also we, as you said, we walk around the world more humbly. Mm-hmm. We understand that there's 5 guys in our gym that in your case could choke you and in my case could punch me, and as in there's this sense of knowing, hey, I can protect myself, but also there's other people out there that are stronger, that are more skilled. Yeah. So there's so many levels to this sport, and it makes us grounded and makes us find out who we are, so that we're not jumping into one side. Okay, today I'm really confident, and the next day somebody tells me something and it just totally crushes my self-esteem. Mm-hmm. It's like we find this middle ground of who we really are.
Yeah. Dude, that's like one of the biggest things that I say about martial arts. Anyone can talk all day about it being a superpower. You're gonna be able to defend your family. You're gonna be able to do, man, the best thing, like one of the main reasons I want people to get in is because you're gonna be surrounded by other, I like to call them savages, like just men who like, if someone is going to their job, working 9 to 5, doing whatever, most of these guys have really hard jobs. And then they get off and they go straight to jiu-jitsu, or they pick their kid. I got a guy, man, dude, he works all day, like working outside, doing stuff I don't want to do. And then he goes and picks his kids up, feeds them, comes straight to jiu-jitsu, gets smashed by me. And then he's like, dude, thank you so much. I'm gonna go get these kids to bed, and then leaves. And it's like that kind of individual who is that dialed in has nothing but good energy. You know what I'm saying? And that's one person. Now imagine you're on a team of 20 to 30 individuals that you're interacting with on a weekly basis. And, you know, it's like when you first start out, right, you can only do one class and it's really difficult. And then all the next thing you know, you're doing multiple classes. Yeah. That when you start doing multiple classes and you're interacting with these individuals and you realize that, oh, dang, these guys are also staying after and working out, or this guy wakes up before his job, lifts, goes to work, and then he's coming to jiu-jitsu, then you start finding yourself, you know what, yeah, I can stay after and do an extra 20 minutes of cardio. It's like in the beginning, you would have never imagined that you could do a whole hour, hour and a half, 2 hours of martial arts and then have the motivation to run for 20 minutes. You wouldn't even be able to imagine it. But now all of a sudden it's a thing because you're witnessing, you're seeing other people do it, whether it's your coach, whether it's your training partners, the guys that are above you, the guys that's been doing it longer. I remember this one guy, we would teach martial arts all day. We would train jiu-jitsu in the middle of the day. And he wanted to just get striking done. He started driving an hour to go to Muay Thai class. And I was like, dude, you're telling, like, we get off at like 4 or 5. I'm smoked, dude. We did workouts all day. And all I want to do is zone out and play video games. And my buddy, he's like, dude, we got to learn the punching, dude. He's like, I got to get my Muay Thai down. Right. So he starts getting the Muay Thai down, dude. He ends up leaving, but as he leaves, I start going. And it took like 6 months, but dude, it was me witnessing how good his striking got, dude. It was like, I used to beat him up on the exchanges just because I had way more, I had just been training for a long time. So even though I didn't have like a specific striking coach, I knew how to throw really well, and I could mix it up with my wrestling and my grappling. So I would pretty much always get the better of the exchanges. Dude, within 3 months of Muay Thai classes, he was keeping the range, throwing head kicks, and his punches were sharper, and he was getting better at grappling. And then so by the time he leaves, I was like, dude, I'm going to Muay Thai class now, because whatever you were teaching, I have to be able to bring to this class. And it was just an eye-opening experience of how you build endurance over time, to where it's like, yeah, I'm waking up at 5:30 in the morning, teaching class, I'm talking martial arts classes, like where I'm working out with them, I'm fighting them, I'm teaching them moves. And then we get a lunch break. I do jiu-jitsu with another guy. And then I go back to teaching another 4 hours of classes. I get off and then I hop in my car and I'm going to do Muay Thai training. And it was just a slow buildup of getting used to it each time. And so again, dude, I got my brother I'm working with right now, and he's like in this state where he like wants to change, but he's like discouraged and frightful. And he's like, I don't see how working out and doing martial arts is going to change me. I'll still be me. And I'm like, dude, you got the focus over a long period of time does change you. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely. And I even had a conversation with a friend yesterday who used to do boxing, and she mentioned that she noticed the positive effects in her life after she stopped doing it.
Oh, snap.
So, yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And so I really like how you're incorporating the meditation and the breath work after your boxing classes. I'd like to hear more how you're like transitioning into that, because like for me, dude, like I said, I was a martial arts instructor. And so I'm telling you, dude, I was in charge of these Marines. Yeah. And like as a sergeant, you know, there's hierarchy, there's structure, and they look up to me. And it was just so fulfilling to have 18, 19-year-olds, sometimes guys my age or even older, in a class, and they're listening to what I had to say. And there was like structured time at the end of every workout and session to do the tie-ins. Mm-hmm. And they also encourage like questions and dialogue. So I'd pretty much get to like talk to these guys, and we would all like kind of come to like, you know, we'd do like a little group think and come like one of the things we would discuss is hate and love and which one's more powerful. And you'd be surprised by how many people think that hate's a more powerful force, you know? And so we talk about it and, you know, and go back and forth, and I show them some examples and kind of come to a conclusion. And, you know, I miss that now that I'm out and I'm in a jiu-jitsu community, and you get this vibe of like, you know, well, people straight up will say it. They'll say, you know, oh, you're just a black belt. You shouldn't be teaching anything else. Just teach the martial arts and send your people home. You're not a life guru. You're not a financial coach and all this stuff. And I 100% agree with that. I definitely agree that just because you show up to training for a long enough period of time doesn't mean you understand anything more than anyone else. I definitely agree with that. But it would just, as someone who is, I would say, like, has these people who are essentially a part of my family, dude. I see the same people like every day, you know, and I truly care about their progression, not just in martial arts. I hope that they're okay in their personal life, you know? And it's like, it would break my heart to know that someone was really struggling in their personal life, and I never like gave them some advice or like talked to them about it. So I find myself like really trying to, I struggle with it a little bit, but it's like, I bring my group in every time, dude. It's just something I'm just ingrained to do, and I say something, and I just try to tell, you know, it's like, guys, I'm not preaching to you. If you don't want to hear what I have to say, you're more than welcome to leave, but I would just be damned if you know, you're a freaking purple belt at jiu-jitsu, you're really good at jiu-jitsu, but your freaking life's falling apart outside the gym, you know, or, you know, you don't get a chance to talk about things outside of just jiu-jitsu. So, yeah, I don't know. I like to hear how you're traversing that, right? Because I'm sure you hear the same thing.
Right. Well, first of all, man, I want to acknowledge that as a teacher, you value that, because it's rare. It's not a common thing that you find many teachers that are just doing their job, that are just there to just teach the boxing, teach the martial arts, and go home. And so I think this just shows your level of understanding and experience, which you know, I'm not a jiu-jitsu athlete, but I also have some understanding that, you know, these belts don't just show you how skilled you are, but it's also hand in hand, parallel with your life experience. It's a way of representing how you're showing up in life and how you're moving through life's challenges. But so one perspective I want to share about meditation and boxing is that, so there's this level of wanting to just relax. Okay, I have my training session and then I just get to breathe and calm down. That's great. And the bigger picture is the question, why am I doing this? You know, why am I training? Why am I showing up every day? And I think this is a constant question to have, because it's so easy to slip off the road and go into the, I'm not enough. I just need to do this until I'm worthy of love, until people start liking me, until I'm good enough to such and such, right? And so I think if we constantly ask ourselves this question, and it requires some awareness and sitting in stillness and meditating, to really get to the point of realizing, wow, I'm doing this because I love this sport. You know, I love every piece of it. I love the community aspect. I love being together with my team and improving, and the discipline aspect. So I just want to point that out, that it's easy to slip off, especially if we have a lot of unresolved trauma, to use this as a coping way to, again, reinforce our old belief systems to ourselves.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%, dude. Yeah, with the asking the why thing, I think a lot of people don't do that, you know? And then, yeah, sometimes we need to be reminded. It's like the same question of like, who am I, right? Like sometimes we got to go back and ask ourselves like, wait, who am I exactly? Same thing. Sometimes when you're doing something, you got to remember like why you're even doing it. Because sometimes we can fall into patterns of just like going through the motions.
Yeah.
You know? And you find yourself doing that too, the better you get at it. The better you get at it, it becomes like less of a challenge. And because it's less of a challenge, you find yourself just doing it. you know, and you're not really like present while you're there. And so, yeah, I can definitely see how sticking after, remembering why you're there can definitely help you get more out of the session. And then even like in jiu-jitsu too, one of the things that I've seen going around lately too is walking after training, you know, just walking around the mat room.
Yeah.
Right. And me and a buddy, before I started running my own gym, I would sit in his car and we would just smoke a little weed and we would talk about the class and our roles.
Yeah.
And so I would kind of get that same walking advantage, like hanging out with my buddy afterwards. But walking, talking to someone afterwards is the same thing in a sense that we didn't just do the session. Now we're going to go back in our minds and play the session out. So that's what you're supposed to do when you walk around the mats and think about your roles, think about the training. And it's funny how like, you don't notice it until you start doing this practice that you're like, man, sometimes I'll just go to class and then I go right back home and I go back to my life and I don't even think about the session again, you know? And it kind of it's just it becomes this number like, oh, I did 3 sessions this week or whatever. And it's like, man, going back through and like analyzing your training session and then like, oh, you know, dude, you actually did catch me in that on. What did you do? And you're like, oh, dude, I was doing this. And, you know, going back through the training really, I found helped me out a lot. And one of my buddies walks around the mats after every session.
Yes. And the aspect of getting in touch with our emotions as men, this is a huge topic, you know, and what you're describing of being in the car with your friend, it's almost like, yes, you're discussing the jiu-jitsu, and in a way, you're also kind of releasing some emotions, right?
Oh,
yeah, this guy tapped me out, you know, fuck, you know, this guy is good, or whatever is going on internally, you're getting to express that. And so that's another aspect of martial arts, is having a group of brothers or sisters that you can go to and they'll support you. And you know, from the martial arts space and from the healing space. And I don't differentiate those two, but I do work with them on an individual basis as well, is that I've realized it's so important to have a support system.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, whether it's through a martial arts gym, whether it's through therapy, whether it's through a friend that you can just go and talk with. Right. Yeah. And as men, a lot of us may be familiar that we have been told that our emotions are not welcome. We've been told that we shouldn't be crying because it makes us less of a man, that you know, we shouldn't be vulnerable because it may ruin our relationships. I mean, all these kind of belief systems that by the age of 10, 11, majority of men are conditioned into. It's ingrained in their entire body that I just can't show any emotions.
Right.
And so if we get a chance to come into these spaces, and sure, it may be harder in some spaces than others, but we get that environment and we start to talk about how we're feeling and what we can learn from it and so on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, dude, you brought up earlier about the Strickland thing, right? And I wanted to make a comment of like, dude, it's wild to think. I definitely agree with you. I think a lot of healing took place in there because I've experienced that myself where like something gets brought up out of nowhere and then all of a sudden you're like crying and you're like, man, I didn't even realize I hadn't dealt with that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, one of my buddies, I got to bring him up too, dude. He has this, his business is called Jiu-Jitsu Outlet, and he ties it specifically in using jiu-jitsu to deal with stress, trauma, anxiety. I had a moment with him, dude. I went down to Missouri and we did a event, like a seminar, did a little competition, had food, did some giveaways. It was just a great experience. And then the next day we're chilling, we're eating a little bit of mushroom chocolates. And he asked me about my military career and then like brought up something that, you know, I just out of nowhere just got brought up, dude. And I just started tearing up and he was like, dude, and he gave me a hug and I was just like, I just remember telling him, I was like, dude, I really thought I was over that, you know? And, but I felt like after it kind of came out, I felt a lot better, you know? I was like, man, whatever, dude, you know, kind of thing. And, so seeing that on Strickland, you know, I I definitely agree with the healing thing. But then another trippy aspect about it is like, now imagine that moment's like out there for the whole world to see, and then to then judge you on it, you know? So that's like a whole experience in itself that he has to deal with, right? I mean, he's literally mega famous, right? He's more famous than most UFC champions ever get.
Right.
And then has a moment on a podcast, and I'm sure Theo Von's the kind of guy, he wouldn't have put it out there unless like it was okay by Sean.
Sure.
So, but I guess we don't know that. But the fact that it's out there, you know, that's like a whole thing in itself. Because a lot of people, they didn't take it as like a healing thing. They took it as you're being an old pussy, you know?
Right.
It's like, oh, this dude talks all this shit, and here he is crying like a big old baby. Get over it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it perpetuates this whole thing that we're talking about.
Yeah. And, you know, sure, when you put something out there like that, there's going to be people that judge it.
Right.
And there are probably countless number of men that open themselves to that experience.
Yeah.
You
So
wonder how many men watch that and go, you know what? If this guy's a world champion and he can cry, you know, maybe I can cry and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the leading causes of suicide amongst men.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's way more common amongst men than it is amongst women, because men never have this outlet to express themselves.
Right.
And yeah, lots of different ways to work with it. I like that you mentioned a lot about psychedelics and your experience with them as well.
Yeah. I like to get into the psychedelic thing, but yeah, to the whole friend thing, dude, all my best friends somehow train martial arts. I didn't plan it that way. Mm-hmm. It's just the most realest people I've ever met in my life also do martial arts. And it was one of the things I also kind of incorporated in my Marine Corps career is I just wanted to find, it just seemed like the people that were the most savage, that's the term I like to describe it, but like the special forces operators, the martial artists, like both are very similar to me in a sense that these are like men who are like chasing challenge, chasing struggle. To me, they always seemed more level outside of it. You know, it's like when I was around them outside of the training, they were the most like cool, chill people. It wasn't a toxic masculinity thing with them. Because dude, people talk about toxic masculinity. Dude, it exists, and it's in the military. Like, if you haven't joined the military, I don't want to hear you crying about toxic masculinity. You know, like I witnessed it every day of my life. Like walking into a room and every person is now looking at you up and down to see if they can yell at you at something, like excited to yell at you about something, like that kind of thing. Like constant, like who's stronger, who's faster, who does this, right? And so, oh damn, where was I going with that? The whole toxic masculinity thing. And so it's like, I found that the guys who actually like did the suffering, the struggling, and did it with good intentions, they didn't play those games outside of it. It was just like real people that actually cared about who you are, took the time to listen, those kinds of people. And so, yeah, again, all my friends are that way. And even with your friends, you're like, you know, you don't want to be the guy that's crying about his problems all the time, right? Like, you know, no one wants to be seen. No one wants to be the baby. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, dude, you know, me and my buddy, we'll get together like once every 2 weeks, and then we just like unload, you know? And it's like, right. And so it's like, yeah, we don't call each other about every little problem, but when we get a chance to link up, it's like, yeah, man, what you been going through, dude? And we just he tells me about his business, the struggles he's been going through. And yeah, that unloading and that unpacking is, I feel like gets overlooked, right? I had this one guy, what do you call, it's a rabbi, I think. It's a Jewish priest, whatever they call those. Okay. I want to say he's a rabbi, but he's for the Marine Corps. So they have like chaplains. So it's like a religious person that is in the service. Yeah. And they have one of every religion. And this guy for the Jewish community came to me, and he was just, I guess he's like passing by, and you know, he's passing fucking wisdom nuggets to everybody. But he tells me, he goes, in the Christian Bible, it says that man is made of clay, but in our text, it says man is made of the word. And he's like, so if you're ever struggling with something, speak it. And he's like, you are voice. He's like, so when you voice things that are on your mind, it'll help you. And dude, anytime I talk about something, it gets easier to talk about every time. And so it's like, imagine joining a community for $100 a month, $150 a month. Most places you can join for $100 to $150 a month. You're getting a skill, you're getting friends, you're getting like the best friends you'll probably ever have in your life.
Right.
You're getting a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
Absolutely. And when I first went into trauma, the first thing I ever learned was I took a course on listening. It's by a program called Listening with Clarity. And their entire approach was that if we actually just get to talk about our distress, that we will come to our own answer.
Yeah.
We don't need advice.
Yeah.
We don't need to hear how somebody else had it harder than us and all these different aspects. We just need to load off everything that's going up here. Yeah. Yeah. My wife is stressing me out. My girlfriend, such and such, my kid, my work. It's like, once you get it out, all of a sudden, everybody has this sense of clarity and they start to figure out all their goals. They start to figure out their plans. They start to figure out everything else.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah. 100% agree with that, dude. It's so funny. You ever had those moments where you're like, something just sounds so clear in your head and then you say it out loud and it's just kind of like crickets and you're like, okay, it doesn't actually sound as good when I say it out loud, you know? But yeah, man, no, 100%. And so, yeah, like, so you're doing like, we'll get into the psychedelics. Here, I'll ask you, I just want to make sure we talk about everything with the meditation and the breath work. So are you doing the meditation and the breath work after every one of your boxing classes? It's like a part of your structure and you have like a whole way of going about it, or how are you doing that?
It was never planned. So I never plan any of my meditations unless I'm really teaching a workshop on a specific modality. But otherwise, it's really just a matter of presence. So as long as I'm present as the facilitator, I can create that field for the 5 students that are also sitting in front of me, right? And just through that energy, this is where it gets kind of energetic and not so much of what the words that I'm using, but it's just a matter of getting people to start to check inwards. So start to find, maybe sometimes we start with a body scan, just changing your posture in a way that you have some awareness, and then starting a body scan from the top of your head down to your toes. Do that and stay connected with your breath. And anytime that the mind starts to wander off to a thought, oh, this guy at jujitsu, this motherfucker choked me out, or this person is doing this and that. Whatever the monkey mind is doing, then we're able to just say, okay, and come right back to focusing on wherever we were focusing on our body. And that's the whole, that's kind of the basis. There's so many forms of meditation, but that was the intention, was to get people to look inwards rather than look pointing to 10 different directions. Just find out, okay, how do you feel right now? I mean, most people can't even tell you, right? Most people can't tell you if they're nervous or they're anxious or they're sad. And all of that comes from somewhere. That's our body's way of speaking to us, right? Our emotions are telling us all the time what we care about and what we don't care about. So it's just a matter of getting in touch with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how, like, in just today's age, because we have so much access to distractions, it's easy to just distract yourself from all the things your body's trying to tell you. I mean, dude, I do it to myself all the time. And then I realize I'm doing it. Like, I'll be like, oh, I got to lose weight, so I'm going to curb this appetite with energy drink, and it's, through that, I come to the awareness of how often I'll do that with just any feeling, like of uncomfortability or nervousness. It's like, dude, the second someone feels uncomfortable, we go, the second the uncomfortableness comes in, right? And then so we start doing that, and then we're doing that with all our needs.
Right.
You know, where your body's like telling you to not do something or whatever. And you're so already got so many incoming distractions that you're not even tuning into like some of your most basic needs. And yeah, I find myself in this loop a lot, you know, because I find myself in the grind, the hustle, right? And so I'm trying to push. And then I'm like, oh, well, a little bit of energy drink here, a little bit of the vape pen here, and then I'll be able to, I do it because it keeps me going. And then I'm in this loop of just, you know, habit. Right. And so I only notice these things when either doing what you're saying, where I have like a moment of presence where I'm like dialed back in, and it usually comes when I have like really strong rolling sessions with training partners, or psychedelics. So that's how we can loop it back into psychedelics. But almost every time I do some mushroom chocolates, dude, it's like, I get this voice like, what are you drinking so many energy drinks for, dude? Do you really need 2 a day? And I'm like, you're right. One is enough. Half of one is enough, you know? It's like, but in the grind of reality, you'll just all of a sudden all these habits will just increase because you're dealing with reality. And you won't even notice until you come back home and you're like, dude, you know, you slept in this many days this week, or you haven't been sleeping all week, or yeah, dude, you're abusing this. It was at this level, and then now this past 2 weeks, it's up here.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So all of that is based on our unconscious patterns, you know, and yeah, there's much to say on that, but psychedelics, like you're saying, are kind of an opening to kind of remind us of that. And, you know, in our society is designed in a way that's so competitive based, and who's better, and who's making the most money, and all these core beliefs that are implanted in us. That if we don't take that moment of pause, life will give you no pause. Because like you said, if you look around you, the 9 out of 10 options are just distractions. The phone, the energy drink, the cigarette, and sometimes a spiritual community.
Food, sugar.
Right. All of that. And so, yeah, you really have to consciously choose, okay, I need to take 10 minutes out of my day to just regroup, or else I won't have time. Right. Or else I'm just going to be procrastinating the entire time.
Yeah.
So psychedelics, they, in my belief, they open this door for realizations, for finding out, finding out more of who we are, finding a deeper connection with nature, with the things that actually matter, I think. And I should also note that psychedelics can be a way to escape too.
Yeah,
just
100%,
as much.
100%.
You know,
it's funny how it's always like moderation, dude. I feel like moderation is one of our themes of this podcast, right? Because yeah, you can do martial arts too much, you can meditate too much, and you can definitely do psychedelics too much. Like one of the first things that came to my mind when we started to dip into this thing, I was like, I want to say that too much of psychedelics is not a good thing. I think we all either have experienced or know someone that has gone butt naked running through the streets and had to go spend the night in the drunk tank, right? Because they ate too many mushrooms. And, you know, it's one of those things where like you eat 2 grams one time and it's the most amazing experience ever. And then you're like, oh, well, 2 is this and 4 is this. And then you're eating 4 and then you're eating 5 and they're not what you thought they were. It's like, oh, it's not the same. I got to keep doing more. And the next thing you know, you're eating 8 grams and you completely lose it. You know, I'm telling you, dude, it's like, I'll warn people and still they didn't heed my warning. You know, if someone's like, I'm going to eat 8 grams. And like, dude, are you sure? Wait, 8's a lot, dude. What about just 5? And they're like, oh no, I did 6 last time. Barely felt anything. I'm doing 8 this time. And then I hear he freaking ran through he was watching the Super Bowl and somehow thought Beyonce and Usher were going to come kidnap him. So he starts running through the neighborhood. Hilarious story. And he's fine. He's okay.
Yeah.
paying a fine,
Right.
but he could have avoided all that if he had just like, more is not better. And I've made the same mistake in my life where partying with friends and I'm like, dude, I'm a mushroom master, dude. I'm gonna do 10 grams, you know? And the next thing you know, you're trying to fight people and it's like,
Right.
you know? So I definitely, you know, more is not better. But as far as like, yeah, the whole psychedelic experience, I will also say that, you know, it's not for everyone, right? I think we all know that. But I do think if you can somehow do it under safe conditions, I think healing can take place. And with what you're saying, every time that I do it, somehow I'm able to get like a third person perspective on my own behavior that wasn't there before. Like I've had so many times where I've taken it and then it's like I'm looking at myself and then like not being harsh with myself, but it's just like, dude, you could be doing better, buddy. You know better. You know, I remember having an experience and I was just like looking at my belly and I'm like, dude, why are you eating so many snacks all the time? You're snacking every day, buddy. Quit snacking all the time. Snack habit got a lot better, you know, or like, dude, I've had.
So can I point something out right there?
Go ahead.
It's like the way that you just spoke to yourself, that you're imitating your trip, is like from a place of compassion.
Yes.
So
yes.
this is like the little things that really make a difference. It's like you could have also said, you could
fatty or something like that. Right?
Yeah, you could have called yourself fat. You would have said, you know, I'm ugly, whatever judgments it could have been. But you changed it to a question from a place of curiosity and compassion.
Dude.
You said, hey, man, why aren't you taking care of your body?
Yes.
And so it's so important, these little things, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no, dude. I remember this one time, it was with my ex, but dude, I used to just be a dick to her, dude. And I just remember I took some LSD one time and it was just like, from the same place of curiosity, it was like, it like was just kind of like telling me, it's like, okay, well, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, dude, I literally got a little bit of sushi in front of me from Kroger's. I got the TV on. I got the AC right where I wanted. I got blankets on. I'm tripping. And I'm like, dude, this is perfect. And then it told me, I was like, well, where's your girlfriend at? And I was like, she's at work. And then it's like, so she's working and and you're out here tripping on LSD, huh? And I was like, damn. And then I was like, and why are you, and why do you say these things to her? You know it bothers her. Why are you saying these things? And it's like, when asked with why, I really didn't even have an answer. It was just like, I just say these things just because I can. And it was just, and then dude, after that day, I like dropped so many like stupid bad jokes that I would make about like seeing other chicks or whatever. Dude, I would just say like pompous, fucked up shit to her just to like put her down. And dude, the L is, again, came from a side of compassion of like, dude, why are you treating her that way? And she's over here doing everything for you. And I was like, wow. And I just felt, I didn't feel bad necessarily like, oh, I'm a loser, but more of like, I know I don't need to do that, you know?
Right.
And it was so funny because then she understood why I would do this because she witnessed me completely change, dude. I like just quit making the jokes. I was like, I realized it's like stupid. It's not even funny. So anyway, one specific healing experience I've had.
Right. And one that's great work. I just want to say that's amazing transformation. And like I should really make clear, like you mentioned, psychedelics is not for everyone. And it's not like you have a trip and all of a sudden you've turned into a monk and everything changes. It can be a tool.
Right.
And the rule I like to use is you have to do psychedelics at the right place, at the right time, with the right people. And so it's so important to have the healing aspect of it as a priority rather than anything else. And so I just want to kind of put that out there. Even some people put out, people do 1 or 2 psychedelic trips and they'll host a healing ceremony for people to do trips. You want to always be careful where you're doing with substances. But man, honestly, the whole point of it is like coming back to love, coming back to having compassion for ourselves. Forget the psychedelics. Psychedelics are a tool, are a gateway to that. But we can all if we just start to have more awareness of how we show up in the world, and we ask ourselves some questions, that we can start to actually develop some compassion for ourselves. But we don't get to have that compassion until we look inwards.
Yeah.
So most people have so much stuff piled up from the past that they've avoided, that that there's this fear. Oh man, if I look into it, it's going to be too much for me to handle. You know, if I just try to face my pain, right, face this challenge that's going on internally, then I'm going to be more depressed. And the truth is, when you go toward the pain, you start to unravel these experiences, you start to become a kinder person, and you get a bigger understanding of things. All of a sudden, it's not about you, right? All of a sudden, you realize, hey, you know, I was being mean to this person because I was hurt when I was a child, and this is my way of projecting it. And so, can I have compassion for me having that level of awareness at that point in my life? You know? And that's a question that we can all ask. And I think with the right kind of support, we can all get to the other side of it, which isn't an overnight process, but we can start to have some love for ourselves and start to change. You know, it's very possible.
Yeah. And I do want to say, to kind of tag along with what you're saying about the love, you might, because I feel like I've asked this question before, but like, oh, well, how does loving myself going to change anything? And it's like, dude, when you love yourself, people sense it. And when you love yourself, you're able to then have compassion for others. But it only comes after you. If you're always like beating yourself up, that's what the outer reality mirrors the inner reality, you know? Right. So yeah, when you develop love for yourself, your outward being becomes completely different. The way you approach people, the way you talk to people. I find that when I learn more love for myself, it's like all of a sudden I'm like making more connections and more friends. It's like they can sense that I've done some inner work, and that they can, like, you know, people can only connect to you to the level that you've connected to yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And so, like, one of the one of the secrets that I figured out in my life was that one of the things that I would use to push myself to be better was I would talk shit to myself. You know, I would just be like, you know, you're a piece of shit and you got to do this, dude. You got to prove to everybody that you're willing to suffer. You know, it's like, oh, you suck at this, you got to suck at this. So you got to do this, you got to do this. And then over time, you know, through like friendships and experiences, I learned to do something because I loved it, right? Or like jiu-jitsu, for example, where I used to work out just so that, you know, I could like almost like shame myself into working out kind of thing. Where it's like, oh, you don't want to be fat. You don't want to be a fatty. You don't want to be a fatty. And then as I like learned to love jiu-jitsu, and I learned to love my body, and I learned to love this character that I've chosen to be, it's like, dude, I have all the energy in the world now. Now I don't need to like shame myself into going to work out. It's like, I have way more energy because it's like, yeah, dude, I literally am freaking main character, and I gotta, you know, put in my freaking strength attribute points, you know? It's like almost becomes fun to go level up the strength at that point. It becomes fun to learn the jiu-jitsu. It becomes fun to learn to watch YouTube videos to figure out how to link the Shopify to your Instagram so that you can one day sell a t-shirt. Like, here's how to use this app so that this can become easier to use this. It's like, it becomes fun to learn these things because you're building this character, right? Video games, another one of the things that we could add to the long list of things that people use to cope with reality.
Right.
But yeah, when you realize that we are playing this as a video game, and then you got to do these monotonous things, it like, again, changes that whole story. When you change the story of why you're doing something, the energy, the intention behind it is way different. So when you're no longer running because you feel like, you know, you're fat and you're useless and all the mean things you can say to yourself, when that shit changes because you just love life, you're like, I'm going for a run today because it's fucking beautiful outside, because man, I got a working body, or man, I love the way it makes me feel. It's two complete different runs, dude.
Right. And if you ever pause and ask yourself in those times, most people would say, this is when I feel like I'm myself, right? When I look at the sky and I'm like, man, I just feel like going for a run today, rather than, hey, I'm a bitch. or if I don't finish this mile, you know?
Right.
Like people will always tell you, this is when I feel more like myself.
Right.
And it's so important to, especially as martial artists, because a lot of us have this critic that pops up. You suck, you know, get that kick right, whatever. And if we can learn to differentiate, to separate these two as who I am and who this critic is, because this critic is just the voice that I adopted from my dad, from my mom, from the people who raised me, from my teachers, right, that used to tell me I'm not smart enough. Then we can actually start to begin to operate from who we are and enjoy life, right? Rather than thinking that all the time I have to put myself through suffering to grow.
Right.
And that doesn't take away from going toward the pain. I'm a big advocate for going towards something, a painful experience that's going to help you grow. But to just suffer through something that you don't have to suffer through, that's a choice.
So, Nima, man, I appreciate your time. We blew through an hour like it was 20 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. As a farewell to the audience, man, what would be your advice to someone who is possibly struggling with anxiety, stress, trauma? Well, you said trauma shows up as like anxiety, stress, depression. What would be your advice to someone struggling with those things?
I would say speak up. You know, you'll be surprised to find out how many people love you and care for you. And whether that's your friend at the martial arts school or that's your peer from school. It's just, I think the more we experience life and the more aware we become, we start to become sensitive to all the beautiful things in life that come along with the pain. And hang in there, you know, reach out for support is the best thing I can say. And, you know, if people ever need support on working on their traumas and sort of just having somebody to support them through their experiences that they're going through, whether it's showing up as anxiety or depression or being reactive all the time. You know, myself, I support people through this, and it's not even about me. It's go to anybody who you can connect with, you know, and I'm also here to offer my support.
Yeah. Well, dude, I'm going to have your links in all the descriptions. And same thing goes for me. If you guys want to reach out to me, reach out to me. We're talking about men struggling with suicide, and I'm sure you know the military struggles with that heavily. Man, we all lose a bunch of friends to suicide. So don't be afraid to reach out to either one of us on Instagram. And yeah, one thing I'll say about like, because I feel like we talked about a bunch of different tools today. And you know, Sadhguru mentions this too. He's like, I don't have any answers for you. I just have tools. I have tools to fix the problems. And he's like, most people have only a couple tools and they're trying to use the same ones to solve different problems. He's like, just like anything, you want a tool bag. And so if you're like wondering, or maybe you're doing martial arts already, I recommend breath work. I was a brown belt in freaking jiu-jitsu, and I still found a lot of healing through breath work. So and I was a brown belt before I found the breath work. So it's like, you're a breath work coach. If you want to experience breath work or some of the meditation or boxing, I think boxing and jiu-jitsu are good for different people. Like some people are too weirded out with the whole touch. And if any of y'all are looking to use these tools and are seeking some guidance, seek my man Nima out.
Yeah.
Hamvatan.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And if I may make two more notes.
Yes.
To add to my previous point is one, I want to make clear, nobody's broken. So nobody needs any fixing.
Right.
We just need healing. And if you are in a place where you're like, should I call this friend? Should I call this peer? Should I call this coworker and let them know how I'm feeling? Always remember that when you do, you open the door for them to reach out to you, you know? And I'm sure every single person who struggles with these symptoms would understand and hold a compassionate space for somebody who called them. So by you going up to them and sharing your story, you open the door for them to heal.
Yeah.
So to see the bigger picture.
Absolutely. You said you had 2 notes. Was that both of them?
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Well, hey,
much.
I appreciate y'all tuning in. This has been a Scotty podcast.
Thank you.
We killed it. That was awesome.